We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can
Honestly,
to
I
score
find it quite hard to feel
points.
too much sympathy for Jimmy Kimmel, who only makes jokes about Republicans and only gives airtime to Democrats on what masquerades as a show for all Americans. And if conservatives are doing cancel culture now, they're not very good at it.
What happens when the king of controversy meets the late-night king? Piers Morgan went into a full meltdown on Jimmy Kimmel, and the internet can't stop reacting. Fired and embarrassed, yes, absolutely. But that's just the beginning, as there are jaw-dropping comebacks, savage burns, and moments that will leave you questioning. Did Jimmy actually see this coming? Stick around because we're diving into every shocking, hilarious, and completely chaotic second that everyone is talking about. I return to
ABC last night, ending days of frenzied debate about state censorship and conservative cancel culture. There was some contrition, but no apology, and a crystal clear message that free speech is under attack.
If you're enjoying this, please subscribe to the channel, as it helps more than you think. And if you believe late-night TV is all laughs and harmless jokes, think again. Because Jimmy Kimmel just learned that being fired doesn't come with a free pass from humiliation. As Piers Morgan stepped in armed with sarcasm sharper than a chef's knife on Gordon Ramsay's show, not just criticizing, but dismantling, annihilating, and leaving Jimmy scrambling like a cat in a room full of cucumbers.
I've heard from a lot of people over the last 6 days. I've heard from all the people in the world over the last 6 days. Everyone I have ever met has reached out 10 or 11 times. Weird characters from my past are the guy who fired me from my first radio job in Seattle, where we are not airing tonight, by the way. Sorry, Seattle. His name is Larry. In 1989, Larry tried to force me to do a bit called Jokes for Donuts, where people would call in with a joke and I would give them donuts. I refused to do it, and then I made a lot of fun of Larry for suggesting it, and eventually Larry fired me, and I had to move back in with my parents. But even he wrote in to cheer me up. Thank you, Larry, and I want to thank everyone who checked in. It would take all week to list all of them, but some that I do especially want to mention are my fellow late-night talk show hosts, my friend Stephen Colbert, who's found himself in this predicament, my friends Jon Stewart, Seth Meyers, Jimmy Fallon, John Oliver, Conan O'Brien, James Corden, Arsenio, Kathy, Wanda, Chelsea, even though I don't agree with many of those people on most subjects, some of the things they say even make me want to throw up. It takes courage for them to speak out against this administration, and they did, and they deserve credit for it.
It started innocently enough, or so Kimmel thought. As being fired stung, sure, a bruised ego, expected even. But nobody warned him that Piers Morgan, the human hurricane of savage commentary, was about to strike, and strike he did, with the subtlety of a wrecking ball in a glass factory, as every tweet, comment, and side-eyed reaction became a perfectly aimed missile. While Jimmy's attempts at humor, cute as they were, bounced right off Piers's armor of relentless mockery for all of 3 seconds.
3 shows before returning to lash Trump on network TV in return for his $50 million salary. But that doesn't mean he's wrong about everything. The glee about his suspension by some free speech superfans was hypocritical, and the pressure from the FCC was outrageous and unacceptable. Government controls on ideas and speech are not just anti-American, they're anti-democratic and they're dangerous. That's why I fully expect all of the people who cried fascism and autocracy this week to condemn the news that the Biden administration bullied Google into closing down YouTube accounts it didn't like. That's a pretty huge free speech scandal about a platform which has an audience 1,500 times.
Now imagine watching a grown man try to defend himself while the internet collectively loses its mind. That's Kimmel right now. As Piers wasn't just pointing out mistakes, but putting together a full highlight reel of late-night flops. Awkward pauses and cringeworthy moments that even Kimmel probably wishes he could erase. While the audience is loving every second, creating GIFs, memes, and TikToks, practically writing the obituary for Jimmy's pride in real time.
Has been pretty well non-existent, a bit like Kimmel's sympathy for the many cancelled TV stars that he didn't like who always skew to the right.
And here's the kicker. Piers wasn't subtle, dropping no hints or polite nudges, as he went full demolition mode while Kimmel tried his usual charm and I'm still funny routine, which was like bringing a plastic spoon to a gunfight, with Piers tearing through every excuse, weak punchline, and attempt to save face, turning obliteration into performance art and humiliation. And people are replaying it like a season finale cliffhanger. Except the cliff is a canyon Kimmel is falling into. While reactions poured in, fellow late-night hosts squirming, fans eating popcorn as if it were the Olympics of chaos, and Twitter becoming a full-on war zone with Piers as the undefeated champion and Jimmy left with a participation trophy. Almost as if you could hear the collective sigh of, well, that happened, echoing through the internet while Jimmy somewhere tries to figure out how to undo every public statement he's ever made. But it doesn't stop there, because in the age of social media, getting roasted once is amateur hour, as Piers delivered follow-up strikes faster than Kimmel could respond. 1 minute Jimmy thinks he's landing a witty comeback. The next he's digitally facepalming as Piers' tweet goes viral. And this isn't just career critique, it's a masterclass in strategic sarcastic destruction. With the wild part being that people are cheering it on like it's the Super Bowl halftime show.
Be crass, inaccurate, and insensitive. TV stations said they'd refuse to air his show, forcing the network to make a choice. As with Colbert's Late Show, this was an expensive production with falling ratings. It's frankly impossible to imagine a time in the past decade when a network host would not have been cancelled for offending the liberal orthodoxy. But that's why it's complicated. Liberals created and enforced cancel culture, often with enormous glee. Many of them feel conservatives are now doing it too, just because they can.
Of course, there's the subtle humiliation, as Piers didn't need to scream or yell, using instead the most effective weapon of all, relentless. Calm, razor-sharp observation, cataloging every awkward joke, forced smile, and attempt to be relatable, presenting it like an exhibit in the Museum of Cringe, making it both horrifying and mesmerizing to watch, like a car crash you can't look away from, but with perfectly timed quips and devastating punchlines. And here's the irony. Kimmel, the man who spent decades critiquing and joking about celebrities, is now the punchline, the target of a flawlessly orchestrated comedic takedown that's both brutal and brilliant, as Piers attacks not just one angle but the career, ego, brand, and fan base in one smooth, unrelenting sweep. And every time Kimmel tries to wiggle out, the internet is there to remind him exactly where he stands, slightly behind Piers in the who's got the sharper tongue contest.
Accounts it didn't like. That's a pretty huge free speech scandal about a platform which has an audience 1,500 times bigger than Kimmel's. But so far the outrage about that has been pretty well non-existent, a bit like Kimmel's sympathy for the many cancelled TV stars that he didn't like who always skew to the right. Well, here to debate this is comedian and host of Fox News on Saturday night, Jimmy Fallon, the CPAC chairman, Matt Schlapp, Daniel Coe, the former senior advisor to President Biden, now host of the People's Cabinet, and Mike.
And then there are the memes. Oh, the memes. As if the world collectively decided to Photoshop Jimmy into every humiliating scenario imaginable. From side-eyeing cats to spilled coffee to tumbleweeds blowing across an empty stage. And for every meme, Piers' point lands even harder, turning it into modern digital humiliation with Kimmel as the star exhibit. Yet there's no pause for reflection or chance to salvage dignity. Because Piers keeps going like a master chef of sarcastic destruction, layering critiques on critiques, with every social media post, commentary segment, and barely their acknowledgement of Kimmel's existence serving as a perfectly seasoned reminder that being fired isn't embarrassing enough. So let's add a dash of public obliteration for flavor, as every attempted defense crumbles, every comeback misfires, and Piers' relentless presence dominates the digital battlefield. And through all this chaos, one lesson is clear. Never underestimate Piers Morgan when the spotlight turns your way, as his humor isn't just sharp, it's surgical. And his timing isn't just perfect, it's merciless.
Are uneasy about a government agency threatening a network over a host the president had warned will be next. Well, President Trump played it down in his speech at Charlie Kirk's memorial.
Over the last 11 days, we have heard stories of commentators, influencers, and others in our society who greeted his assassination with sick approval, excuses, or even jubilation. And the same commentators who this week are screaming fascism over a canceled late-night TV show where the anchor had no talent and no ratings. Last week, we're implying that Charlie Kirk deserved what happened to him.
Well, he's right. The liberal outrage is grotesque.
And his aim isn't just accurate, it's career-defining. As every tweet, post, and comment is a calculated strike designed to entertain, devastate, and keep viewers completely hooked. While Jimmy Kimmel is left to face the crushing irony that a man who built a career on skewering others is now perfectly skewered himself. with the humiliation quiet, creeping, and undeniable. As the audience witnesses history in a rare moment when late-night comedy becomes a spectator sport, and Piers Morgan emerges as the undisputed champion of chaos, wit, and total annihilation, and just when you think it's over, it's not, because Piers doesn't quit. The takedown keeps evolving into new tweets, commentary, and evidence that Kimmel underestimated the fury of a man who doesn't just speak. He obliterates with every misstep, awkward laugh, and failed deflection cataloged, replayed, and magnified for maximum comedic effect. While the audience can't get enough, proving that being fired isn't fatal. But being roasted by Piers Morgan, that's legendary. As social media becomes the arena where reputations are made, broken, and memed into eternity.
Ongoing. We don't quite know how it will all play out yet. My view of it, for what it's worth, is people talk a lot about free speech, and the reality about free speech is I don't think it should be criminalized or governed by government unless people actually say criminal stuff. In other words, if I say, I'm plotting to kill you, Bill O'Reilly, tomorrow night at your home, that's clearly something which crosses the line. It shouldn't be covered by free speech.
Jimmy Kimmel just got a masterclass in what happens when humor meets unrelenting sarcasm, producing results that are chaotic, hilarious, and completely addictive. And as the dust settles, one thing is clear. Piers Morgan didn't just go after Jimmy Kimmel. He rewrote the rules of late-night humiliation, proving that sometimes the pen, or in this case the tweet, is mightier than the ego. And just when you think Kimmel might catch a break, Piers drops another digital bomb, no longer subtle, delivering pure, unfiltered, front row to your embarrassment chaos, as someone takes his entire career, slices it into bite-sized clips, seasons it with sarcasm, and serves it back to him while the world watches, making Kimmel's attempts to recover like putting a Band-Aid on a sinking cruise ship, cute but utterly ineffective, while someone even photoshopped him as a tiny figure being blown away by a Piers-shaped tornado. And honestly, it feels accurate, with the late-night world watching from the sidelines. Other hosts scrambling to react without seeming petty or desperate. Some whispering to producers, some frantically scrolling through Twitter, and some just laughing as if it's a live sitcom.
Speak out against this administration, and they did, and they deserve credit for it, and thanks. For telling their followers that our government cannot be allowed to control what we do and do not say on television, and that we have to stand up to it. I've been hearing a lot about what I need to say and do tonight, and the truth is, I don't think what I have to say is going to make much of a difference. If you like me, you like me. If you don't, you don't. I have no illusions about changing anyone's mind, but I do want to make something clear because it's important to me as a human.
There's a strange mix of admiration and terror. Because watching Piers dismantle Jimmy Kimmel isn't just entertainment. It's a lesson in obliterating someone with style. As the memes reach peak chaos, from combining Jimmy's shocked face with the Disaster Girl meme, to entire Jimmy Kimmel versus Piers Morgan video game trailers. And don't even get started on the TikTok compilations. With at least 15 viral dance challenges inspired by his awkward reactions alone, while every time someone tries to defend Jimmy, Piers casually posts another clip, adding fuel to the fire like a chef tossing ghost peppers into an already too spicy dish. Even making Kimmel's own fans question him. The same people who once thought he could do no wrong, now sharing gifts of his worst moments, laughing at clips they never noticed before, and wondering out loud, did he really say that? It's like watching a slow-motion collapse of confidence, with each second more humiliating than the last. As Piers isn't just criticizing, he's rewriting history, spotlighting moments Jimmy thought were clever, and turning them into comedic ammunition that hits harder than ever than a linebacker in the Super Bowl.
Perfectly entitled to say a disgusting thing as he did about Charlie Kirk, but at the same time, he's accountable to his employers, and that's where it gets interesting. And I know that you've got insight into how this went down. What I didn't like, Bill, in the process was the FCC chair, a pro-Trump political appointee, Brendan Carr, publicly kind of threatening, almost like a mafia don, kind of threatening we can do it the easy way or the hard way, because that looks like government
Then there's the imagined behind-the-scenes chaos, as picture Jimmy pacing his living room, muttering to himself, maybe if I tweet a cat meme, it'll distract people, while Piers is probably sipping tea somewhere, smirking, knowing no distraction will work. As every attempt at humor, every self-explanatory caption, And every desperate plea to fans is met with calm, sarcastic precision. Like watching a gladiator match where one player brought a sword and the other a butter knife labeled confidence. And of course, the media can't get enough. With headlines popping up like fireworks, Piers Morgan delivers savage takedown of Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel humiliated on social media after firing. Late night chaos as Piers Morgan reigns supreme. Every news outlet scrambling to cover it. Sometimes rehashing Piers' clips as if they were breaking news. While Jimmy's attempts at spin feel like background noise in a hurricane, as Piers isn't just attacking Kimmel, he's giving the internet a show, a spectacle, a moment they'll remember forever, and the audience is eating it up, sharing every clip, laughing at every meme, and replaying every highlight like it's a movie trailer for the most dramatic show of the year.
And I don't think these serve their viewers, and I don't think they serve their companies. But I also feel uneasy, as Kat said, about the FCC poking its nose publicly into making not even veiled threats, but direct threats that if ABC, Disney didn't take action against Kimmel, then they were going to pay the consequences. So where do you sit with all this?
Listen, I'm new to your audience, so just to introduce myself, I am a tell it like it is comedian.
And the worst part for Jimmy is that every attempt to fight back only fuels the fire, as every tweet, statement, and attempt at humor is cataloged, analyzed, and dissected, giving Piers endless ammunition for his next strike, making the humiliation self-perpetuating, like a snowball rolling down a mountain, gaining momentum and size with every reaction until it becomes a full-blown avalanche, while the internet watches, popcorn in hand, loving every second, and by the end, it's clear that Jimmy Kimmel might have been fired. But Piers Morgan has officially crowned himself the undefeated champion of late-night chaos. With social media still buzzing, memes circulating, and Jimmy's attempts at humor now part of a curated exhibition of perfect destruction, as he remains the unwilling star of the show while the audience can't get enough.